Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Neighbors Kept Parking in Our Lot. I Froze Them Out. Over 2 decades ago, my family and I lived in a peaceful suburban neighborhood just outside Chicago, known for its unique 3-flat apartment buildings. My parents, always thinking ahead, had invested in 2 of these buildings. We occupied 2 units while renting out the remaining 4 to tenants. The buildings were situated on a large plot of land, which was considered a luxury in the area. As a result, we had ample parking space for 16 cars, making it a perfect living situation for both our family and our tenants. For many years, things ran smoothly in our little community. Our tenants were respectful, and we never had any issues with parking or property boundaries. However, our peaceful life was disrupted when new neighbors moved in a few buildings down. They purchased a single unit and soon began causing trouble. We started noticing unfamiliar cars occupying our parking spaces, and I even caught one of the new neighbors driving through our bushes and across the yard to exit the property. Outraged by their brazen disregard for our property, I contacted the police, but their hands were tied. Determined to put an end to the unauthorized parking, I contacted a tow company, which promptly installed signs warning that unauthorized vehicles would be towed. The signs seemed to do the trick, and the random cars stopped appearing on our lot. However, our victory was short-lived. On New Year's Eve, as the neighborhood prepared for a night of celebrations, I returned home to find our parking lot completely overrun with cars. To make matters worse, some vehicles were parked on the street, effectively blocking our tenants' cars from leaving. Furious, I called the tow company, only to learn they were swamped with calls and couldn't come for several hours. Meanwhile, the temperature outside was well below freezing, turning the streets into a winter wonderland. As I stood there, shivering in the cold, an idea struck me. I decided to teach the trespassers a lesson they'd never forget. I gathered our lawn sprinklers and hoses and connected one to the laundry room faucet, using hot water to prevent the equipment from freezing up. Then I embarked on a mission to cover every inch of the parking lot, the street, and the offending cars in a thick layer of ice. I was particularly diligent about targeting the locks, window seals, and grills of the cars. After 5 hours of meticulously spraying the area with water, I put away the equipment and retired to bed, anxiously awaiting the morning's events. At 4 a.m., I was jolted awake by the sound of furious pounding on our door and the relentless ringing of our doorbell. Grinning, I called the police and waited for them to arrive, sipping my coffee as I watched the chaos unfold from my window. When the officers arrived, they struggled to suppress their laughter at the icy spectacle before them. The partygoers, it seemed, had been directed to park on our property by their friend, the same inconsiderate neighbor who had driven through our bushes. I pointed to the tow sign and informed the irate crowd that they had 2 options: move their cars or face being towed. With my permission, the officers ticketed all the frozen vehicles, which were eventually towed since no one could gain access to their ice-encased cars. A few weeks later, my family and I received an unexpected visit from the neighborhood's homeowners association. They had caught wind of our frosty retribution and, to our surprise, wanted to recognize us for taking a stand against the ongoing parking issue in the community. They awarded us a certificate of appreciation and even vowed to implement new measures to prevent unauthorized parking in the area. Our actions had not only caught the attention of the neighborhood but also inspired change. However, this wasn't the end of our story. A couple of months after the icy incident, the inconsiderate neighbor decided to throw another party. This time, they were cautious not to park on our property, but they still took up most of the available street parking, leaving our tenants with no place to park. I decided that a more creative solution was needed to send a strong message. I enlisted the help of some of our tenants, who were eager to participate in teaching the neighbor a lesson. We constructed a makeshift barrier using traffic cones and caution tape, effectively boxing in the cars parked on the street. We then posted a large sign that read, "Respect your neighbor's parking rights." Additionally, I had made contact with the tow company ahead of time, ensuring their prompt assistance if needed. The next morning, we were once again awakened by furious pounding on our door and the incessant ringing of our doorbell. This time, however, we were prepared. As the police arrived, the officers couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of the boxed-in vehicles. The irate partygoers were left with no choice but to call a tow truck to move their cars, which they did at their own expense. In the days that followed, we received numerous messages of support and gratitude from our tenants and other neighbors who had grown weary of the inconsiderate neighbors' antics. The Homeowners Association followed through on their promise, implementing new parking regulations, and even increasing the fines for unauthorized parking. The inconsiderate neighbor, now notorious for their parking blunders, eventually decided to move out, selling their unit to a more considerate family. From that point forward, our little community returned to its peaceful state, with residents respecting each other's parking rights. While I didn't capture any video evidence of the dramatic events that transpired during those unforgettable months, the memories remain etched in my mind as a testament to standing up for one's property and teaching inconsiderate neighbors a lesson they'll never forget. Moreover, it proved the power of community action and unity in resolving conflicts and fostering a harmonious living environment for all. In my opinion, this story was quite the roller coaster. It's fascinating to see how the narrator came up with creative solutions to protect their property and parking rights. It just goes to show that sometimes thinking outside the box can bring about change, not only for one person, but for an entire community. While the methods were a bit unconventional, it's heartening to see that in the end, the neighborhood came together to support each other and enforce more considerate behavior. It's a great reminder that we all have a role to play in maintaining a harmonious living environment. The next story is titled, HOA Forced Me to Pay HOA Fees. Although I'm not part of the HOA, I sued them for $154,000. Life has a way of teaching us lessons when we least expect it. For me, one of the most significant lessons I've learned in recent years is that standing up for myself and fighting for justice can be worth the struggle, even when it seems impossible. This is the story of how I took on a corrupt homeowners association, HOA, and emerged victorious, changing the lives of my neighbors and myself for the better. About 18 years ago, I decided to move to Plaza del Sol, a picturesque community nestled in a quiet corner of the city. I was drawn to the area's charm and the promise of a peaceful, friendly neighborhood. Little did I know that my life would be forever changed by the events that unfolded in this seemingly idyllic location. The community of Plaza del Sol was divided into two distinct sections. The first section, where I purchased a lovely older home, was built several years before the newer, more upscale second section. Upon closing the deal on my house, I received a packet of HOA documents and was informed that I was part of the association. At the time, I thought nothing of it and accepted the responsibility without question. For a decade, I paid my HOA fees diligently, which amounted to a staggering $400 per month. The association wasn't overly strict, and I had no reason to suspect anything was amiss. That is, until one fateful day when I received a peculiar letter from the HOA. The letter requested that all homeowners in Section 1 sign updated legal documents. It was cryptic and vague, which immediately aroused my suspicion. As I reviewed the new documents, I made a shocking discovery. The homes in Section 1 were never meant to be part of the HOA. It seemed that the association had been dishonestly collecting fees from us for years, under the pretense of authority they never possessed. This realization sparked a fire within me, and I decided that I could no longer sit idly by while the HOA exploited my neighbors and me. I refused to sign the updated documents and stop paying my fees. I rallied my neighbors in Section 1, and together we began to resist the HOA's unjust demands. The HOA did not take our rebellion lightly. They threatened and harassed us, even going so far as to attempt to auction my house off in a short sale. It was at this point that I decided to take legal action against the association, despite the uphill battle that lay ahead. Finding a lawyer who was willing to take on an HOA case proved to be a significant challenge. Many attorneys I contacted were hesitant to get involved in such disputes, as they can be notoriously difficult to win. However, after a long search, I found a capable and determined attorney who was eager to bring justice to our situation. The legal battle was long, arduous, and emotionally draining. It took years for the case to finally reach the court, but I never lost sight of the goal: to expose the HOA's corruption and free my neighbors and myself from their grasp. When we finally faced off against the HOA in court, I was nervous but resolute. The HOA's lawyer was aggressive and attempted to discredit me, but my attorney presented a compelling case. He revealed that the association had misrepresented its authority over Section 1 and had been deceitfully collecting fees from us for years. The jury found the HOA guilty of negligent misrepresentation and awarded me a third of the fees I had paid over the years. But the battle was far from over. The HOA appealed the ruling, dragging the case on for another year and pushing it through various levels of the legal system. The emotional and financial toll on me and my fellow Section 1 neighbors was immense. but we remained steadfast in our pursuit of justice. Eventually, our case reached the Supreme Court, where the final showdown took place. The judge carefully considered the evidence presented by both sides, asking probing questions that cut to the heart of the matter. The HOA's lawyer continued to be aggressive, but it was clear that their case was unraveling. Finally, the judge delivered the verdict. The Supreme Court upheld the original ruling and ordered the HOA to pay me over half of the fees I had paid them over the years. The total award amounted to $154,000. Though it didn't completely cover my legal expenses, it was a significant victory that sent a clear message to the corrupt association. With the ruling in our favor, the residents of Section 1 were finally free from the HOA's tyrannical grip. No longer burdened by their unjust fees and rules, we could once again enjoy the peaceful, friendly neighborhood we had originally sought. However, the story didn't end there. In a dramatic turn of events, our legal victory inspired other homeowners to investigate their own HOAs, uncovering a widespread pattern of corruption and exploitation. News of our case spread far and wide, prompting a wave of legal challenges against dishonest associations across the country. As a result, regulations and oversight for HOAs were strengthened, protecting homeowners from future abuses. Today, I continue to live in my beloved home in Plaza del Sol's Section 1, where the memory of our hard-fought battles serves as a constant reminder of the importance of standing up for what's right. In my yard stands a sign that reads, "HOAs suck," a testament to the perseverance and determination that brought justice to our community and sparked nationwide change. Together, my neighbors and I forged an unbreakable bond, and we remain vigilant, ensuring that no one else will suffer the same fate at the hands of a corrupt HOA. In my opinion, this story is a testament to the power of standing up for what's right, even in the face of adversity. It's inspiring to see how one person's determination to fight for justice not only changed their own life, but also sparked a movement that led to nationwide reforms. The story is a reminder that we should always question authority when it seems unfair and never be afraid to stand our ground. It's also a great example of the power of community and how, when people come together for a common cause, real change can happen. Overall, I found the story engaging and thought-provoking, and it definitely makes me think twice about the role of HOAs in our neighborhoods. The next story is titled, "Dealing with a Gas Thief." Ever since I could remember, my family owned a charming beach house perched on a cliff in a small coastal town in Puerto Rico. The town was an idyllic blend of rich history, breathtaking landscapes, and diverse cultures. It was a sanctuary for artists, writers, and travelers alike, attracted by the exquisite culinary scene and vibrant arts community. Growing up, I spent many summers in that quaint beach house, surrounded by the lush greenery and mesmerizing turquoise waters. After completing my studies and working in the city for a few years, I decided to move back to my childhood home. I yearned for a slower pace of life, a chance to reconnect with nature, and the opportunity to nurture my own creativity. My beach house became my haven, a place where I could work remotely and escape the chaotic urban life. One major challenge of living in such a remote area was the frequent power outages during the rainy season. As a digital freelancer, a stable internet connection was essential. To ensure my work remained uninterrupted, I relied on a gasoline generator. It wasn't the most eco-friendly solution, but it allowed me to maintain a semblance of modern living in this beautiful, rustic setting. A few months after moving back, a new neighbor arrived in town. He lived a couple of houses down the cliffside path and had a vintage Chevy van from the 70s parked outside his home. The van was a work of art, adorned with vivid psychedelic patterns and gleaming chrome accents. Although I admired his taste in automobiles, my new neighbor, whom I'll call Rick, turned out to be anything but agreeable. One afternoon, I discovered that the gasoline container I kept outside for emergencies had been tampered with. I had seen Rick lurking around my property earlier that day, and I confronted him about the missing gasoline. He feigned ignorance, denying any involvement in the theft. I decided to let it slide, hoping it was a one-time occurrence. However, a week later, the same thing happened again. Frustration and anger bubbled inside me, but I knew that confronting Rick again would likely yield the same result. Instead, I devised a plan to teach him a lesson he wouldn't forget. I emptied the gasoline container, refilled my generator, and topped off my car's tank. Then, I drove to the nearest gas station and filled the container with diesel fuel. I placed the container back in its usual spot outside my house and waited. A few nights later, the sound of a tow truck shattered the peaceful silence. Peering out my window, I saw the truck hoisting Rick's incapacitated van onto its bed. Rick's face contorted with rage as he hurled curses into the night air. I couldn't suppress a satisfied grin, watching him suffer the consequences of his actions. Word spread quickly about Rick's nefarious activities, and it became apparent that he had a long history of petty theft and dishonesty. The small community, once welcoming and trusting, now united against him. His actions had disturbed the peace and harmony that defined our town. The final straw came when the landlord evicted Rick due to multiple complaints from other tenants. As he packed his belongings and drove away, the community breathed a collective sigh of relief. With the gas thief gone, life in our picturesque town returned to normal. Months passed, and I continued to cherish the tranquil life in the coastal town. Although I still kept a container of gasoline outside, I added a lock for extra security. The dramatic incident with Rick had become a distant memory, a reminder that even in paradise there can be trouble. Update. Sometime later I learned that Rick had relocated to another part of the island. Unfortunately, his penchant for mischief followed him. Through the grapevine, I heard that he had been arrested for attempting to steal a boat from a local marina. It seemed that Rick was incapable of changing his ways. A year after the incident, a massive storm hit the coast, causing widespread damage and leaving many residents without power for weeks. The community rallied together, working tirelessly to repair the damage and help those in need. Amidst the chaos, I couldn't help but think about Rick and how his actions had inadvertently united our community. During the recovery efforts, I met a young couple who had recently moved into Rick's old house. They were kind, hardworking, and shared my love for the arts. In a twist of fate, the gas thief's departure had paved the way for new friendships and a renewed sense of unity in our close-knit town. As we rebuilt our lives after the storm, I realized that sometimes adversity can bring out the best in people. Our community had faced both the figurative and literal storms and emerged stronger than ever. The once troubled beach house down the path had become a symbol of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of a united community. As for Rick, I occasionally heard updates on his misadventures. He continued to drift from place to place, leaving a trail of anger and distrust in his wake. While it was disheartening to know that some people never change, I was grateful that our community had come together to rise above the darkness he had cast over our once peaceful town. In the end, the story of the gas thief became a pivotal moment in the history of our coastal community. It taught us the importance of unity and vigilance in the face of adversity, and ultimately it reminded us that together we could weather any storm. In my opinion, this story was a captivating read that showcased the strength and unity of a close-knit community. I enjoyed how the author depicted the beautiful coastal setting and the contrast between the idyllic surroundings and the gas thief's malicious actions. It's a great reminder that sometimes adversity can bring out the best in people, and I appreciate how the story ended on a hopeful note, highlighting the power of a united community. It goes to show that even in paradise, there can be bumps in the road, but those challenges often make us stronger in the end. The last story is titled, "Won't Call Me By My Name, You Get a New One." As someone born into an immigrant family, my parents always wanted me to stay connected to our roots. Hailing from a small Eastern European country, they were proud of their heritage and wanted me to carry that pride forward. With that in mind, they decided to give me a name that truly embodied our culture, Elisabetta. Although I've always cherished my unique name, I can't deny that it has caused me a great deal of frustration over the years. Growing up in the United States, I quickly realized that my name was a constant source of confusion for many people. Friends, teachers, and even some family members struggled to pronounce it correctly. As the years went by, I grew accustomed to the mispronunciations and the various nicknames people came up with, but one thing always bothered me. My own extended family couldn't seem to get my name right. Now, in my early 30s, I still find myself correcting people on a regular basis. Most of the time, they would call me Elizabeth, which wasn't even close to my actual name. It was during one of our annual Thanksgiving gatherings at my grandparents' house that I finally reached my breaking point. Each year, relatives from near and far would come together to celebrate Thanksgiving. The house would be filled with laughter, love, and delicious food. This year, though, my patience was wearing thin. My Uncle James, who had never been able to pronounce my name correctly, was the final straw. He persistently called me Elizabeth throughout the day, despite my multiple attempts to correct him. After the umpteenth time, I had enough. I confronted him, exasperated. "Uncle James, it's Elisabetta, not Elizabeth. Please try to remember that." He rolled his eyes and said dismissively, "What did I say? Why does it matter? I said it close enough." In that moment, something inside me snapped. I decided that if my name's pronunciation didn't matter to him, why should I make an effort with his? From that point forward, I would call him Jamboree. It was a ridiculous name, but it seemed fitting for the situation. At first, Uncle James found the whole thing amusing. He chuckled at his new nickname, thinking I would eventually drop it. However, as the day wore on and more family members began calling him Jamboree, he grew increasingly annoyed. The Thanksgiving feast was a lavish affair, with everyone gathered around a beautifully decorated table, sharing stories and jokes. As we enjoyed the meal, I could see Jamboree's frustration mounting. He tried to ignore the constant teasing, but it was evident that the nickname was getting under his skin. As dessert was being served, Uncle James could no longer contain his irritation. He slammed his fork down on the table, causing the silverware to clatter and everyone to fall silent. Standing up, he addressed the room with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. "All right, I've had enough. I get it, Elizabetta. I didn't realize how much it bothered you. From now on, I promise I'll make an effort to get your name right," he conceded, his face flushed with frustration. Feeling a mix of relief and sympathy, I decided it was time to end the ordeal. "Thank you, Uncle James. I appreciate it," I replied sincerely. The next day, as we all pitched in to clean up the aftermath of the feast, I overheard Uncle James quietly practicing my name, repeating it under his breath. It seemed he was genuinely determined to get it right. Months went by, and to my delight, Uncle James consistently addressed me by my proper name. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to me. I could see that he was making a genuine effort to respect my identity, and it brought us closer as a family. As Thanksgiving approached again the following year, I was both excited and apprehensive. I hoped that the progress we had made would last, and that this year's gathering would be free of any name-related drama. To my surprise and relief, not only did Uncle James continue to call me Elizabetta, but other family members seemed to have taken notice of his efforts, and were making a conscious attempt to get my name right as well. However, just when I thought the day would pass without incident, a new issue arose. My cousin Amanda, who had recently married a man from a different cultural background, introduced her husband Kieran to the family. Throughout the evening, I noticed that some family members were struggling to pronounce Kieran's name, and it brought back memories of my own experiences. Determined to prevent another family member from experiencing the same frustration I had, I decided to take action. I proposed a toast during the meal, drawing everyone's attention. "Family," I began, "we come from a rich cultural heritage, and it's important that we respect and honor each other's names. As someone who has faced this challenge myself, I'd like to ask all of us to make an effort to get Kieran's name right, just as Uncle James has done with mine." Uncle James, sitting across the table, gave me a knowing smile, and everyone raised their glasses in agreement. It was a poignant moment that not only helped bring our family closer together, but also highlighted the importance of recognizing and respecting the diverse backgrounds that made our family unique. From that day on, our family gatherings became a celebration of not just togetherness, but of the rich tapestry of cultures that we all represented. Names were no longer a source of frustration or confusion, but a symbol of the love and respect we had for one another. And as for Uncle James and me, our bond only grew stronger with each passing year, as we both learned the power and significance of something as simple as getting a name right. In my opinion, this story is a great reminder of the importance of respecting each other's names and cultural backgrounds. It's easy to see how the protagonist's frustration with her family's inability to pronounce her name correctly led to some humorous and dramatic moments, but at the same time, the story beautifully shows how a small act of understanding and effort can bring people closer together. It's a nice lesson in empathy and the power of recognizing the little things that make each of us unique. I really enjoyed reading it, and it made me reflect on my own experiences with names and cultural differences. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again.